Hello and welcome to the Gospel-Centered Education Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Argersinger, and this is my co-host, Kelly Allen.
Hey, Tom. Today, we're connecting the dots between kids, teens, culture, and biblical truth. And we have a lot to talk about because we're changing some things up.
We are changing some things up.
Yes.
So today's episode is like beginnings of the third season and how things will be a little bit different with the Gospel-Centered Education Podcast.
I can't wait.
All right.
You are listening to the Gospel-Centered Education Podcast, brought to you by Community Christian School in Tallahassee, Florida.
So here we are. We're starting out season 3, and we're going to talk a little bit first about just the way we think about our audience.
Yeah, so season 3, our audience has changed a little bit, and we really are trying to focus in on who's listening to the podcast, and that's basically anybody who loves and works with children.
Yeah.
Wherever like modeling, teaching, and learning is taking place,
Right.
that's that's our target audience.
It
That's
really
who we're
is.
talking to.
Whether it's parents,
Yeah.
just in a home setting,
Yeah.
or homeschooling even. I mean, we're focusing on teaching and learning, but there's a lot of what we talk about that's just about kids.
Yeah, and a lot of
and
that happens in the home.
A lot of that happens in the home,
Yeah.
and it happens in schools, obviously.
Yeah.
But also, we got to thinking about it, and some of the feedback we've gotten over the last couple of years is about, churches.
Yes.
And even people on mission fields,
Yes.
that work with teenagers
Yeah.
or with because it doesn't really matter where you are, because a lot of the concepts we talk about are the same.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a really important part of what we do.
Yeah. So I'm excited that we've narrowed it down to that, and it's actually, we've always kind of been talking to, if you listen to the first and second seasons, like we've always been talking to that audience, but we didn't really realize. We thought maybe we're just talking to parents, but no, it's broader than what we thought.
It is, and I think that's one of the things, like when you start podcasts and you do podcasts, or anything like this, people give you all sorts of advice, like don't be too broad, don't be too specific, on and on it goes. And
we've kind of been both, I think.
And I think sometimes you just have to walk through it and figure it out as you go along, and go by listener feedback, and that's what we've tried to do, and also in our case, what the Lord is saying to us, and how He's kind of guiding us, and a lot of our listeners are beyond CCS and beyond Tallahassee.
Yeah.
And so that's where we've gotten feedback as well.
Yeah, and like different schools, and even schools in different countries.
That's right. Yeah. So we feel a responsibility to an extent, and it's something we want to. In fact, we were just talking before we came on camera today, just about how can we best bring something important to the larger conversation. For those who work with and love kids and teens. How can we do that?
That was going to be my question to you. How can we do that?
Yeah, well, I think it's like multifaceted, right? Because we were talking before we came on camera, it's like I sometimes tend to kind of think up here, and people look at me and go, what are you saying right now? I have no idea what you're talking about. Please translate. And I don't mean to do that. It's just the way my brain works, which is sometimes okay and sometimes not. And you were talking about how it's not always easy to help make the connections with the audience when we're talking about large concepts.
You've been in education for 40 plus
Many
years.
moons have crossed the sky,
and so
yes.
you have a lot of knowledge about this stuff, whereas me, I've been working with kids for 15 years.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, in the ministry setting. And so, and I'm a parent. It's different,
It's different, and I think the goal for this year is really to continue to give our listeners and viewers something substantive.
Yes.
But not just like super complicated.
Right.
One of the things we talked about is that this whole concept of gospel-centered education, in order to understand the subtleties of it, you have to be able to think some.
Yes.
You have to be able to think pretty well to get the subtleties.
Yeah.
And if that's not as common as maybe as it used to be.
Right.
And so that the concept or the topic in itself can be tricky, right?
Yeah.
But
it can be uncomfortable too.
Yeah, it can be, because we don't want to, I certainly don't want to in any way talk over people.
Right.
But some of the stuff is a little deeper. There's just no way around it.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's the translation part.
Yeah. Yeah, but the bottom line, there's a need for gospel-centered education.
The bottom line is there really is a need. I don't believe there's ever been as much of a need as there is now. And in subsequent episodes, we're going to look at some of the data and everything. But just in a larger picture, we alluded to this in the trailer for this season.
Yeah.
But in the larger picture, the stats have not gotten better regarding the way people are dealing with kids and how kids are doing kind of in our culture.
Yeah.
In the West in particular. It's just not encouraging across the board. There are hopeful parts to it, and that's what we want to really major on.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this, I think, in the trailer. One of the things that's very encouraging is the quiet revival, as they're calling it, going on in college campuses.
Yeah.
That's huge. So God is definitely moving.
Yeah.
One of the things I get asked a lot is, why gospel-centered education? What's the point of even talking about this? Is it the same exactly as Christian education? And the answer is, yeah, kind of, but it's got a different focus, which we'll talk more about as the days go by, the weeks go by with
I think it's more thoughtful too, because you can say in a Christian school, you can say, well, just add Jesus to it,
Yeah.
and see, God will work it out.
Right.
But this is more of a thoughtful approach, I think.
I think so, and I
Yeah.
think it's what I would hope so at least, and I think it's also what we tend to major on. Like, for example, one of the things would be the concept of the kingdom of God being present now but not finished, so to speak, or not completed yet. And that's a really, really important concept. Or the concept of all truth is God's truth wherever you find it.
Right.
Not every Christian agrees with that, for sure. But yet that is a key component to what a gospel-centered education should be, so that we can go into the world, live and work in the world, and be successful in that sense, true success.
Right.
Because we believe that when we find truth somewhere that's not a Christian author or a Christian setting, that we say that's good. We can latch onto that and go, yes, I agree with that, even if it comes out of the mouth of a non-Christian or a non-Christian setting or whatever.
Yeah.
So just a couple of examples. So telling the difference, I think, is really key. And then also, I hope what we can do this year is give people frameworks and tools.
Yeah.
And also do some research, because there are some listeners who want to know the details.
Yeah.
They want to know, well, where did you get that idea from?
Yeah.
Which I think is another thing that we can do that is, I think, very important. We've talked about some questions that we want to look at this year, kind of as underlying or background sort of questions to what we talk about. And maybe we can just look at a couple of these. I think you have this on your sheet too.
Yeah.
So why don't you just read the first one out loud? Let's
Okay.
start with that.
It says, what or whom do you want the children in your care to be like?
Yeah.
So that can be a question for across the board.
Correct.
Everybody who loves and works with children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. What do you want them to be like as they grow up? And of course, that is also including whom do you want them to be like? What's their exemplar? And if we think about that for a second, there's a lot of possible answers for that.
Yeah.
Rich people, smart people, whatever, faithful people. There's a lot of different ways you can answer that. So the second one is that we have down here is kind of follows on the first, and that is who or what is forming them.
And I think a lot of times as a parent, you don't step back and
You don't think about it.
you don't think about it.
No.
And that's why we're giving it more of a thoughtful approach. Think it through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I love the word forming. Not everyone really connects with that word.
Yeah.
So you can use the word developing and all that. But forming has this sense, forming kind of goes along with the word forging. And so when you're helping someone grow up or helping someone mature or helping someone grow, there's a sense in which you're applying or life or God, and however you tend to look at that, all the above, tend to apply heat and pressure. And that's part of the forging that goes on in making someone who they are. Whether that translates ultimately as suffering or whatever it is, there's purposes in it, like we've talked about. So, but being formed is that idea that there is a mold somewhere. You're being formed. Well, then that raises a lot of questions, especially in America. It's like, well, who gets to decide what the mold is?
I like how it says who or what is forming them. Because we're having a lot of discussions about technology.
That's right.
And that'll form a child.
There is no doubt. The data is 100% clear that all of that stuff definitely forms people, adults and kids, and teenagers. So for sure. So why don't you read out the third one?
What should we see, be, know, and do to be more effective in intentional formation of our children? Yeah,
because ultimately we want to be as practical as we can. We do have to talk about some concepts because that's what undergirds what we're trying to do and what we're trying to say. But ultimately, what do we need to know? What do we need to be able to do? A good example of this is the issue of technology, and especially personal technology. And that question continues to come up from our listeners and viewers. What do you do with cell phones? Well, a lot of that's being answered now. More and more schools, more and more states are saying no more cell phones in schools.
Right.
Et cetera. So there's a lot of change going on. So we want to make sure that we're on top of that change and be able to share that with people.
Yeah.
But also being able to look at that and go, well, no, I don't want my kid to have a cell phone. Well, how are you going to do that?
Yes.
Like if you just went and told your kids tonight,
Yeah.
hey, we're no longer going to ever use cell phones.
Yeah. It would
Good luck.
be a meltdown at my house. Yeah.
It would be tough, right? And that's not really what we're saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's a good example.
But we will get into that.
We'll get into that,
Yeah.
for sure. That, and we'll also get into generative technology, I
Yes.
think, as time goes by.
I'm
Because you
excited.
cannot get away from the artificial intelligence.
Right.
I'm not sure if virtual Vance will be back.
I'd love to see him.
There are some people who would love to see that, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We'll have to check. We'll have to Google it.
I don't know. He got out of control last time.
He did get a little bit. That's understandable, though. One of the questions, also probably the last one we can talk about today, is so given all of that. So given the idea of what do you want them to be like, what's forming them, and then what are some specific tactical frameworks and tools and stuff like that. But then ultimately, what role should faith in God play in the process? One of the questions I get asked and I think about a lot is, how is it any different from anybody else? So if you have an atheist raising a kid and a Christian raising a kid, what are the differences? Well,
There
frankly,
should be something different.
yeah, there's going to be something different.
Yeah.
And a lot of the difference, and this is why it gets tricky, right? Because a lot of the difference is the why and the more subtle underlying reasons and frameworks and context for why you do what you do. And yeah, in some cases, how you do it too.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, we're trying to raise young people, kids, to be pleasing to God.
Yeah.
Because we believe he exists,
Yeah.
and that matters.
Yeah.
He's personal, all those things. But everybody has to decide that. Parents have to decide, is it Sunday school, church attendance? Good. Is that it? Is there more to it? What about the issue of surrender? Submission? Does that matter? All of those questions, I think, are something that individual parents and caregivers, even counselors who work with kids, children's ministers like you were at one point, all of that, I think we have to decide what we believe about that.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share a couple quotes as we move towards the end of this first episode anyway, because I love these quotes.
Yeah.
I'm reading this book. I'm always reading books, I'm reading this book called, what the heck is the name of it? It's, the name of the book is Where No One Else Wants to Go. I
Okay.
think that's the name of it, or something like that, Where No One Wants to Go. I think that's what it is. And it's by Carol Ward, who was a missionary, may still be a missionary to northern Uganda. And she went in there as a single woman in the early 2000s when northern Uganda was literally a war zone with Joseph Kony and the rebel army against the government. It was a complete mess. And no one went there. No missionaries. And this single young woman listens to God, and he goes, "Hey, I think you should do that."
Wow.
Yeah. Can you imagine if your daughter came, if Hannah came and said, "Hey, by the way, Mom, guess what? When I
my
graduate from
goodness.
high school, this is what I'm doing."
Yeah, I would not like that. Yeah.
Right? So this is who we're talking about. So this is the quote. She said, "People will never become true leaders until they learn to trust not only those who love and work with them, their teachers, their parents, their pastors, etc., but their Father in heaven in a specific way, as sons and daughters." So you can't talk about becoming a true leader, really, without having that fundamental underpinning of, I know who I am. I'm a son or I'm a daughter of the King of Kings. We'll talk about that in the spring. We start unpacking more of the identity, personhood, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that quote, Carol with an E, Ward.
I guess that's the idea of making Jesus Lord overall.
I think that's it's kind of all that umbrella, right?
Yeah.
The theme for this year at CCS is Live the Kingdom. And so if Jesus is Lord, what Carol Ward was doing was she was living out the particular call on her life.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as you were talking about as parents, like, I wouldn't like that very much, which you speak for every parent.
There had to have been a lot of people that told her not to.
There were, yeah. Anyway, so it's tricky, right? And we're not, I guess I should say a disclaimer. We are not necessarily advocating for single young people to just leave and ignore what everybody's telling them and go to a foreign country and do whatever. But in this case, there was a specific set of circumstances, and it was amazingly successful. God really blessed it in fantastic ways. Anyway, second quote is from one of my favorite authors, G.K. Chesterton, who was a satirist. He did satire.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know why more people don't read G.K. Chesterton today, because I think people would appreciate it. He was a journalist, etc. But anyway, he says, and I've kind of adapted this quote to talk about GCE because he was talking about education in general.
Okay.
The purpose of education in general, or GCE, is to help kids and teens, quote, exercise the eye until it learns to see the startling facts that run across the landscape as plain as a painted fence. We have to find a way to be at once astonished by the world and yet live and work in it. And that's a lot of what we talk about with kingdom-type education, because we have to be able to look at the world and go, there are a lot of really weird, not great things in the world. But yet, God's kingdom is infiltrating that world, and we are part of that infiltration.
Yeah.
And our kids and teens and those who are graduating from gospel-centered schools, etc., are moving into the world in order to make those huge differences, or even small differences, where they live and where they work.
Yeah.
And so I love that, because it's very, very poetic, right? The startling facts that run across the landscape as plain as a painted fence.
Yeah, I love how it says exercise the eye until it learns to see it too.
Yeah,
because it reminds me of art school. You know, when I used to draw, they used to take us out into a field, and I'd have my notebook, and you think you can draw something until you actually start to try to draw it, like the perspective and everything. But you have to exercise your eye.
You do. You have to learn how to see.
You have to learn how to see it. Yeah. The thought of doing that with the culture and with the,
It is, because ultimately this whole enterprise really is about helping people understand.
Yeah.
Helping people to discern, and then helping them to live and make decisions and have relationships, et cetera, with wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's really what gospel-centered education, kind of in a nutshell, whether it's in a school, whether it's in a home, whether it's in a church, or whether it's in a workplace for that matter. The point is, that's kind of what we would define as true success.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. Really looking forward to this season.
Me too. So that's the case for our podcast. This is why we're doing what we're doing.
This is why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is the way we're going to try to do it. And and so we should put a challenge out there for our listeners and viewers.
Okay.
Like, if I say stuff that makes no sense, I think we should just have people make sure they write in and say,
write in, yes.
Please write in. It's like, Tom, what are you talking about, man?
We don't understand.
Come on.
Yeah.
We have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah.
And because I don't want that to be true, even though we do have some complex things we have to unpack. But still. So we need to let our listeners and viewers kind of be the guide.
Yes.
Yeah, not just you, who says to me off camera, what are you talking about? So good. So we'll jump in next time, but we're going to end the way we always like to end, right?
Yep.
So if you forget everything else that we say on this podcast, remember, Jesus means for us to live the kingdom of God out in everyday life. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Gospel Centered Education Podcast, brought to you by Community Christian School in Tallahassee, Florida. You can find us online at myccs.org.